Here we are at Southport 52 with Mi-Soul, and we've got two celebrations. This is the last ever Southport, but it's also the rebirth of the Rebirth. You're back.
We are back.
So we have with us Carlo, Baskerville Jones and Patrick from the band. You've just finished your set. What an incredible set that was.
Yeah.
Packed audience. So how did you find it?
It was a great closer. This is the last date of our little tour, mini tour of the UK, and we couldn't have asked for a better crowd. I mean, we did the early slot. We were worried that we were going to have like about 5 people in the audience, but it was full house for the show, and the fact that it's the last Southport weekend there, it just makes it doubly nice.
And it's your first time to Southport?
Second.
Oh, you came last time?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, many moons ago.
So you have a history.
I think it was Southport 12 or something last time.
So you have a history. You have a history with the event too.
Yes, yes.
And where else have you been playing in the UK? I know you did the Jazz Cafe. Where else did you do?
We did actually we did the Borderline, and then we did we celebrated the 12-year anniversary of the Jazz Refresh Party at Mau Bar, and then we did Manchester Band on the Wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take it back a bit. 10 years ago, the Journey In, the first EP. How did that all come about?
It really was just a kind of a motivation to keep there wasn't a lot of soul bands, and we were actually inspired by the whole UK soul acid jazz movement of the Brand New Heavies, Incognito, Jamiroquai, Young Disciples, and I was kind of jealous that the UK was featuring all these incredible bands that played soul music, which was kind of non-existent in the United States at that moment, and still kind of non-existent. So the idea was to keep this idea of the quintessential soul band, the family soul band, where everybody in their neighborhood, their cousins, all picked up an instrument, you learn together. So, and so then we just released a single. We didn't know what was going to happen with it. We just said, let's put the single out, this Journey In, and see what happens. It kind of just caught fire.
And what part of the States are you from? Where was that?
Los Angeles.
And you had a label, is that right?
Yeah, I released it through a label that I started with Cashmere Sound, and then from there we released the second 12-inch, Everybody Say Yeah, and then we released the full length.
Because you had other artists on the label as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Cy Smith and a bunch of other artists that we kind of just launched. And a lot of it happened was when we launched the 12-inch and we started getting a little traction, we didn't know that a lot of artists also needed representation. So they started coming to us like, how did you guys get your record around the world? Can you please help us? So it went from a label to then a distribution company. So for the next 4 years, we had about 1,500 distributing items, about 10 releases. But then, of course, I think the record industry car kind of jumped over the cliff. With no more CD sales, everything filed for bankruptcy, it was a huge transition. I think that was kind of like where we detoured a little bit.
Although you were quite pioneering at the time, because now self-releasing is commonplace, everyone does it. But at the time, everyone thought you had to be on a major label to get out there, and so you were quite pioneering in what you were doing. Did it seem that way at the time, or?
No, we just felt like we were filling a void, to be honest. I mean, there were a lot of independent labels. We just felt like we actually didn't know that we were kind of at the end of an era, because we were still one of the last companies that, and myself, we would go store to store all around the United States in a car, in a van, selling records. You know that story, that we were probably one of the last people to do that, and we did that in the UK. So while we were on the road, we jumped out of the bus, like everybody race in and go sell records to the store, and that's how we did it, with our backpacks running down the street, these heavy records, like to set up these accounts, and then everything just kind of changed dramatically.
And so through that change, there's been a long gap. So what's been happening in the last 10 years or so?
Well, there was a phase-out period that lasted a couple of years as far as the label, and then we released a 12-inch called Love Issue, which was kind of our boogie track. And it was well received here. I think Snowboy reviewed it in Blues and Soul and gave it 10 out of 10 stars. But we were kind of a couple years early on the whole new boogie craze, so the timing was a little off. And without having a label to proper support the record, we couldn't really get on the road again. And then our original singer Noel Skaggs left and now performed with Fits and the Tantrums. And it took us a few singers and a few years to kind of find the right fit for the band, and of course here she is.
Well, that neatly links into Baskerville Jones. So
yes.
How did you find Baskerville?
She was referred to by a friend, mutual friend.
So what were you doing before you were discovered by Carlo? What were you up
Actually,
to?
I was singing background for this friend. He was the lead singer for a rock band that we were performing with, and he's like, well, he was ready to actually close out his career, at least as a lead singer and with that band. And he's like, I think the Rebirth will be a good fit. It's perfect timing. They're looking for a singer, and you should meet them at least. And I had never even really heard of the Rebirth, and I listened to the music, fell in love with it, and then slowly fell in love with the band.
An acquired taste, is it?
Yeah. There was a growing phase. We had to get to know each other. So.
And how was it changing musical direction?
It's a bit different. I mean, my roots are in church. So I guess a lot of what I do stems from that, and you probably see that in everything else that follows, even with the Rebirth and the rock band, it was the same thing. So it's a different medium for my roots, but I think holding it down.
And in the live show, you did a fantastic melody at the end with Evil Vibrations, The Mighty Riders, and Pleasure, Joyous, and stuff. So are those tracks that you've grown up with, or was that more of a band thing?
That was more of a band thing. I don't even think I'd heard those songs before.
I think I saw her potential and her fitting in the band before she actually saw her potential fitting in the band. Because I know that in house music, in the disco funk stuff, the jazz funk, everything is very rooted in gospel music. And at some point, I think once became like, okay, I'm out of my head, and now I'm just gonna follow my instincts. I think that's when we kind of turned the corner, and now you're starting to see it in the performance, her kind of taking ownership of her place in this project live, and allowing what she does naturally to come out and shine. I think that's important.
Let's bring Patrick in. So,
Yes, sir.
Patrick, what's your story behind all the Rebirth? How did you get involved? And
Well, it's funny. I think it was, gosh, I'm trying to think of the year. Let's not even think about that, though. It was a long time ago.
a while ago.
And I was playing in a band in Los Angeles. I think it was around 99 or 2000, something like that. And I was doing a show with my band at the time, and we were opening for the Breakestra.
And who was your band?
It was called Sounds of Ceviche.
Okay.
No longer around.
What kind of thing was that? What kind of music?
It was very similar. It was very similar to kind of like a Breakestra sort of thing, kind of mishmash of kind of throwback soul and modern soul. But yeah, we were actually opening for Breakestra, and I kind of linked up with Carlos, and he told me he really liked my playing, and he's like, yeah, you should come down and play with my group. I have another group called Rebirth. He was doing Rebirth at the time as well. It was kind of the beginning stages of the band, and I really dug his playing. What Breakestra was doing. It's kind of weird because I ended up playing with Breakestra as well after that.
Everybody in LA, I think, has gone through.
Yeah, well, that's a very common thing in LA. Everybody plays with Breakestra. So.
you haven't arrived until you've been through that journey.
Yeah, Breakestra is basically like it's like Funk 101. Yeah, it's like a college. If you're if you want to play R&B or soul in LA, you definitely have to spend some time in Breakestra.
So talk us through the new album. So you've got a new album that came out last year. I remember
Actually, this year, January, February. Right?
Yeah. Because I remember getting This Is Coming to around this time last year. I had an advance copy.
Right.
It blew me away. I mean, I hadn't heard from Rebirth for a long time. I actually played it at Southport 50 last year.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic track. And then
the single. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
the single. Yeah.
Right.
Because then the album then followed. I think we got it here later last year.
Okay, so you got an advance copy.
Yeah, we got advance copies.
So
of
he's
that.
getting all kinds of advance stuff. We didn't even know
That's what Mi-Soul does. Plays it first.
He got it before me.
How you getting all these advance copies?
It got leaked. So it's been a really successful comeback, hasn't it? Because you're now touring, and what kind of response have you had in the States?
We've just done very few shows in the States, actually. Just kind of around LA. I mean, I feel like our music's a little. I think for the majority of our hometown, it's kind of a lot of music for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. So it's like we have really devoted fans, and like a lot of other people are kind of like don't know what to think of our music. I feel like sometimes, You know, but then we come over here and it's just a completely different.
Have you had a similar response across Europe, or is it mainly the UK? Or
I'm trying to think. We haven't played in Europe too much. I think we did. France. We definitely did a couple of shows in Paris.
That was back then.
Yeah, that was back then. We haven't.
Yeah.
We haven't
As
touched
far as
on
the new
Europe
record,
yet.
it's really only this is it.
This is it right here. Yeah.
As far as the new record, we're just getting started. I mean, the record just came out, and it's still people are discovering the record. And we just released our second video for Show 'Em. That was filmed at a backyard party that we played at. So we just, brought my friend brought like 5 cameras, and said, let's shoot this. And then we found this 8-year-old B-girl, little dancer that just became the star of the show, and we just let her run around and do her thing. And the video is really engaging, but I think we're just it's definitely a rebrand at this point. So there's going to be a whole new audience. I mean, we have our regular audience base that seems to be supporting still and wanted us, but then we're hoping to get the new fans.
And it's a great live sound as well. Is that a deliberate effort to make that? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean we put ourselves through the grind to rehearse, to get to the point where we sound like the record, and then some, and then we take it to a whole nother level.
And I understand this is not a fleeting return. We're not going to wait another 10 years, are we?
No.
15 years.
No.
15 years was it?
No, we have there was a lot of records that didn't end up on this record, and we're like, you know what? Let's just keep going. Let's not even take a break. I think we're gonna go back home and focus on some more shows, and then keep recording some music. Maybe drop another 12-inch. Who knows?
Excellent. Because I mean now everything's so fast moving because everyone can access music everywhere. But a lot of bands find it quite tough to keep the pace because you have to keep putting stuff out because people quickly move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
So that's you're now on a mission to keep us with the music.
That's what's changed a lot as well. Back then you could probably take some time, but now you take a year off and it's like, who are you? Where'd you go? Let's move on to the next thing,
So you've got more stuff in the pipeline. You're going to be doing more touring and stuff?
We hope so. Yeah, I mean, right now we're open to play, and people are starting to inquire about the band. We hope to do more festivals because usually festival shows help us wrap tours around for the little shows, and we love the little shows. But at the same time, to take a 7-piece band on the road, it's quite expensive. We're actually funding this thing personally ourselves, this road trip.
And with the release, so you're obviously releasing it yourself. This time, are you just going to be doing your own stuff? Are you going to work with other artists as well, or?
Right now, we're just going to focus on the Rebirth.
Okay.
And then maybe some remixing opportunities come up, or us working with other people. But I think right now we just have to kind of like get focused and get our sound and our brand back on track.
So tell me a bit about the track, the first single. This is coming to. How did that whole come about? What's the background to that?
This is coming to. I don't even remember. What was the? Everything's a blur. Like we spent 6 years recording this record, so I'm like,
oh wow.
Yeah, everything's. It's just one of those things that I don't really know the exact moment, but it became one of the beginning of the conceptual idea of, without getting too deep into it, but. If enough of a collective consciousness gathers together, they could, in a very quantum world, make things positive happen. Or so if enough people think about something negatively or positively, we may actually manifest that eventuality to happen. So it became this ideas, and the whole record just came conceptual of being through the eyes of a child, of us kind of reuniting ourselves back when we were children. So every song somehow, without us really thinking about it, became thematic of that sound and that lyrical content.
Okay, well, it's fantastic to have you guys back. Thank you for coming to talk to Mi-Soul, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers.